What has to happen to you? And how long is it going to take all of you to understand that if we all stood up together and said, no, get back in your cage, you can't fool us any longer, we know what the law is, we know who you are, we know what you're trying to do, we know that you are in subversion, executing treason, and it's over. And ladies and gentlemen, what would it take to make you understand that if we all did that in concert, it would really be over? And no one would be injured, not even with a tiny scratch. Because they're cowards. They wouldn't even think of attempting to overcome a whole people who stood together. But you see, I know that won't happen. I know human nature, and I have studied history well. Most people are cowards, have always been cowards, will always be cowards, and they will hide and whimper and wail and gnash their teeth and cry, waiting for those of us who are not cowards to do something on their behalf. And we will, as we have always done throughout the history of the world, we will, but let me ask you this. In light of that, why will we? Why have we? And what are you going to do to us when it's all over? Because that always happens too. You see, the vast herd of cowards become shamed, and we become the symbol of their disgrace, and then they must get rid of us. I'll tell you why we do it. Because we have a spiritual motivation that most of you cannot and will not ever understand. We do it out of love. We do it for our children and your children and all of the future generations of the world, which we refer to as our posterity. And we really don't give a damn what happens to us. I know that someday I will stand before God, and God will judge me. And all that I hope for in this entire world is that when it happens, you will not have to say anything, bad or good, just smile. And if that happens, I will be enthralled throughout eternity. I will have such joy within my soul that you cannot even imagine. Just a little smile, that's all I want. I would like to be able to look down and see that my children are living free, without fear, with opportunity to create and make of their lives what they will. Ladies and gentlemen, all I want, or all I have ever wanted you to be, is honest, committed, caring, loving, and understanding that there are those in this world who cannot love themselves, much less love you, and therefore will try to hurt you and me and our children and our world, and those people we must oppose and fight. You cannot have peace, love, and understanding with those kinds of people, because to do it would mean your destruction. Those of you who have studied psychology and have studied Jung and his system of archetypes, which are supposed to be, so he says, common to all people, even though they may speak another language or live on some island somewhere and has never had contact with the rest of the world. And so the secret societies say that their method of symbolism, their secret or esoteric language, functions in much the same way. Ladies and gentlemen, recently you have noticed a proliferation of symbols appearing on the landscape all across the United States that to the average person, or what those adepts within the secret societies call the profane, that's us folks, should not be there, or really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, what is a huge, gigantic pyramid doing in Memphis, Tennessee? Or in Las Vegas, Nevada? Are cropping up as capstones on the tops of buildings all across America, skyscrapers. Why is it that in parks and in industrial complexes and on the lawns of great corporations all of a sudden are springing up obelisks? And if you drive through great cities like Atlanta, Georgia, the proliferation of the symbology of the ancient mystery religion of Babylon is staggering. Where has it all come from? What is going on? What is this all about? Did all of a sudden everybody develop a great penchant for Egyptology? I don't think so. In fact, I know so. They have not. It is the manifestation of the public unveiling of the people who belong to the mysteries, the hidden fraternity, what they call the Brotherhood of Man, the Order, the Illuminati, as they watch the culmination of the progression of their work through the centuries, as the New World Order struggles to be born. Wow, did I just say all of that? Where did all of that come from? It comes from years of study, ladies and gentlemen, years and years of research. You see, there was a time that I didn't know anything any more than most of you listening. I didn't know what was happening to this country or to the world. I didn't know who was doing it. I didn't know how they were doing it. When I went to a cemetery and saw that a full 1/3 of the gravestones were obelisks, capped with a stone version of the eternal flame, I had never paid it a thought. I thought maybe this was in the tombstone maker's showroom, you know, that you could just scroll through and, hey, that looks nice. Let's put that on Uncle John's grave. I didn't understand that it doesn't appear on the grave of just anybody, and it doesn't just appear in the stone maker's showroom. These things, for the most part, are special ordered for the adepts, the priests of the mystery religion, of the brotherhood, of the fellow travelers of the world who are engaged in the, quote, great work, end quote. Tonight I'm going to acquaint you with the identity and the source of most of this stuff. Where does it come from? It comes from the symbology, the mystical language, the esoteric teachings of an ancient religion that has been passed down from father to son and mother to daughter throughout the ages, throughout the millennia, all working toward one common goal, and they are pretty near the completion of that goal, which is to establish what they call a benevolent dictatorship, ruled, so the public will think, by a Messiah, which will be presented to them, to take the public credit and the public ire, but that person will just be a puppet controlled from the shadows by a, quote, council of wise men, end quote, who will administer the most terrible justice, they call it, that the world has ever known, so that their rule will never be challenged. They're in the process of creating a one-world totalitarian socialist state. The regions of the world that you have heard Jackie Petru talk so much about will become the states of this world government. The states as you know them now in countries will disappear. borders will come down. And that's happening through such things as NAFTA and GATT and a lot of other treaties and international agreements of which you know nothing about. They will control all people and all property, all transactions, all intercourse of every kind, all communications, all knowledge. They will rewrite history. And anyone who challenges their rule, once that rule is set in stone, will just simply disappear from the face of the earth. Communism sprang out of this brotherhood, was invented by the brotherhood. One of the manifestations of this order was the old Knights Templar, which was, ladies and gentlemen, communism. The symbol of the Knights Templar were two knights riding on one horse. You see, when an initiate joined the Templars, had to give up all worldly possessions to the order. He contributed according to his ability, and he received according to his need. Nothing has changed. The Knights Templars became the world's first international bankers. And that's why the King of France turned against them. He owed them so much money, he couldn't pay it back. So his answer was to destroy them. In the act of attempting to destroy them, which he was not able to do, he made them extremely angry, and they went underground and established a system of lodges which ultimately became the modern fraternal order known as Freemasonry, and many others. It matters not what you call them, or what apparent occupation they seem to be engaged in. All of these different so-called fraternal orders are interlocked and are virtually the same order at the highest degrees of initiation. They are what is known as the Illuminati, or the illumined ones, the adepts, the 1,000 points of light. That wasn't something George Bush or his speechwriters just pulled from out of the ether, ladies and gentlemen. These people don't go about bandying such terms. They have meaning. George Bush was initiated into the order in the crypt, the Skull and Bones, the Russell Trust at Yale University, when he suffered a symbolic death, placed in a coffin, naked, with a cord tied around his genitalia, representing the separation from the carnal world, and then was raised with the grip of the lion's paw and given a new name. George Bush spent most of his life as a Central Intelligence Agency operative, was heavily involved in the invasion of the Bay of Pigs and the John F. Kennedy assassination. It was George Herbert Walker Bush who set up the drug smuggling operations into this country when he was president and CEO of Zapata Oil, where the drugs were brought in on shrimp boats and fishing boats to the offshore oil platforms, and from there brought to the mainland of the United States of America by crew boats and helicopters, where they were not subjected to customs or law enforcement inspections of any kind. That was just the beginning. Communism, ladies and gentlemen, has been a vital factor in American politics since the very birth of our republic. In the early days, communism was called Illuminism. They were called Jacobins. It was promoted and propagandized by a secret conspiratorial organization that was named the Order of Illuminati. And this is not conjecture, it is historical fact. It was dedicated professedly to bringing about a new social order, or New Deal. But actually, ladies and gentlemen, its purpose was to overthrow governments throughout the world by revolution and to gain for its bosses worldwide dictatorship, one world. with everyone and everything under the control of the order. And you can sit back and yell conspiracy theorist all you want to. It is the nature of man to conspire. It is the nature of organizations to conspire. The truth is, ladies and gentlemen, conspiracy is a part of all political processes, all organizations and agendas that have ever existed upon the face of this earth. Many of you conspire with your fellow workers against other fellow workers in order that you get promotions above and ahead of them. Conspiracy is a part of life. It is a fact, whether you like it or not. And if you have a dictionary, I suggest that you look up the word conspiracy, look up the word theory, and then begin to screw your head on straight and live in the real world. Because this conspiracy that I am talking about tonight is one of the most deeply rooted American political traditions that has ever existed. The members of the organization were as fanatic in their zeal as their followers, present-day communists. This fanaticism was passed down from generation to generation, much like any other religion, for in fact it is a religion practiced behind closed doors in temples without windows. As a result, the Illuminist, socialist, communist creed was handed down from father to son, mother to daughter, and it became a tradition in many old American families, in much the same manner as the traditional adherents of many of those families to the Masonic order, or the Presbyterian Church, or Catholicism. Most people belong to the religion that they attend because their parents did. Most people are Democrats because their parents were, and for no other reason. And you all know that. This explains the preponderance of its adherents on the present political scene. There is no difference between the Republican and Democratic Party in Washington, D.C., in the United States of America today. Not one nickel's worth of difference, ladies and gentlemen. Doesn't matter who you vote for, they're all operating for the same end. World socialism. Clinton Roosevelt, a relative of Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Teddy Roosevelt, wrote a book called Science of Government Founded on Natural Law. It is of high significance in American history because it is the cornerstone of this traditional creed. It was plagiarized from the teachings of Adam Weishaupt, with slight modification to adapt it to the American scene by his ranking American disciple, Roosevelt. It presents the organizational aspects of the conspiracy, and it is the original blueprint of the New Deal. And it's NRA, and I don't mean National Rifle Association. It is, ladies and gentlemen, indeed astonishing that a historical document of its importance and its background history has suffered so complete a blackout as to be practically unknown to contemporaries in whose lives it has played so large a part. Adam Weishaupt was the scion of a traditionally Catholic Bavarian family that ranked high in the church educational circle. He was trained by the Jesuits. Thanks to the influence of his family in Jesuit circles, Weishaupt was made professor of canon, which is church law, canon law at the Ingolstadt High School at the age of 24 years. Now, in those days, ladies and gentlemen, high school was really university. In the course of his training, Weishaupt had conceived a paranoid hatred of the faith of his forebears. This led him to the insanely grandiose scheme of destroying the Catholic Church and of taking over the Holy Roman Empire and the world in a one-world, absolute dictatorship which he hoped would be dominated by himself. In fact, he planned that it would be, if he lived that long. But he taught that it might take hundreds of years in order to complete this conquest of the world, and he trained his followers and taught them a religion that even if they knew they would not see the completion of their goal in their lifetime, they would still struggle toward that end, believing that they would come back in another body, reincarnated, and ultimately see the fruition of their great work, so to speak. On May the 1st, or May Day of 1776, at the age of 28, Adam Weishaupt founded a secret society for the purpose of carrying out his revolutionary conspiracy. He named it the Order of Perfectibilists. Weishaupt pretended that his objective was a new social order and social security for the people that was to be obtained by perfecting human nature. It was, in fact, a humanist religion. The name of the organization he changed shortly after its founding to the Order of Illuminati, with the implication that its members were enlightened, free, or, quote, liberal, end quote. The term liberal has since then been reserved for those who accept Weishaupt's ideas, which he teaches to his followers will be the culmination of the great plan, after which the happiness of man will be assured, fulfilled. Weishaupt, you see, was a master propagandist and realized that liberal, as applied to his conspiracy, would become accepted because a lie repeated often enough comes to be believed. You see that happening every day. How many times did they repeat the same lie over and over and over again on the communist news networks? How many times did they do it after the bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City? For days and for weeks and for months we heard the same lies over and over and over again until the majority of the sheeple in America believed it. It works. If you tell somebody the same lie over and over and over again, even though they know it is a lie, ultimately they will come to believe it. Or I should say most people will come to believe it, not all. But most are psychologically set up to fall right into it. The extent to which this was accomplished, ladies and gentlemen, is indicated by the fact that the day on which he founded the order, May Day, is celebrated throughout the world by liberals, radicals, revolutionaries, and labor organizations in recognition of the fact that it was the mother of all revolutionary organizations dedicated to class warfare in the modern era. You see, it was his idea to wipe out the ruling class, to wipe out the middle class. In fact, to bring society to one class and one class only, to eliminate the ownership of all property, and much, much more. Adam Weishaupt, in the modern day, was the father of socialism. Now, socialism was not new in his day, and he certainly did not invent it. It was the cause of the fall of the Roman Empire. Although you won't find anyone who tells you that if you read history, that if you have a brain, you will arrive at that conclusion for yourself. Rome began as a republic, descended into oligarchy. From oligarchy rose dictatorship. The dictator then became God. The God, in order to appease his people, began to hand out favors and benefits. And to pay for these favors and benefits, the empire had to always be expanding into new territory to bring in new materials, new trade items, new slaves. And ultimately, it was the rampant degradation of the human condition brought about, as it always brings it about, socialism, that brought down the Roman Empire. You can listen to them tell you that it was many of hundreds of other things, but it was socialism, ladies and gentlemen, that did it. Weishaupt pretended that his objective was a new social order and social security for the people that was to be attained by perfecting human nature. He was a master propagandist. The task that he set for himself was twofold. First, it was destroying the prevailing order. Second was building up a worldwide dictatorship. The first task required the reduction of the peoples of the world to serfdom by inducing them, ladies and gentlemen, to renounce their allegiances and wealth, or by robbing them of their possessions and usurping power over them. To bring about renunciation of wealth, as in the rest of the conspiracy, Weishaupt unhesitatingly adopted the devices tried and proved by the very religions that he denounced and sought to destroy. as rivals for the mastery of human minds. He proclaimed that, and I quote, "Man is fallen from a condition of liberty, equality, and the state of pure nature. Man is not bad except as he is made so by arbitrary morality. He is bad because religion, the state, and bad examples pervert him," end quote. He therefore required abandonment of all the trapping of civilization, the destruction of religion, of family life and parental discipline, and of all existent governments, and that is what you see going on around you today. And he denounced ethics and morality as a violation of reason and natural law. If it feels good, do it. Yeah, I want to kill that person over there. Okay, it's a learning experience. You'll learn something, and the guy you killed's going to learn something too. And in the next life, the whole human race will benefit from that. He was a propagator of blathering bullshit, and that's the truth, ladies and gentlemen. But so many people fall for this blather, this pablum, because it makes them feel good. It makes them not responsible. It makes all the measly little nitpicking, bad and puny, mean and selfish things that people do okay. And that's why people buy into it. He denounced ethics and morality as a violation of reason and natural law. Without man having to answer to a higher self and adhering to morals as a guidance of society, then everything becomes subjective, ladies and gentlemen, and is prey to the process of rationalization. The most heinous serial killer who butchered and then ate his victims could rationalize why he was right in doing so. Without the restraints of moral values, anything is okay in a subjective world. That is why our society is disintegrating, because we are living in that subjective world brought about by liberals who adhere to Adam Weishaupt's teachings. He was a sick man. He created an order of sick people to bring about the condition of a sick world in order to divide and conquer those of a moral nature, to bring about his totalitarian socialist world government, the enslavement of the human race. For after everything disintegrates into chaos, his order then will bring forth order. Many people don't know it because they haven't studied history, and those who do not study history are doomed to repeat it. They're not aware that the same occultism, the same New Age babble that is occurring in America today and all over the world was rampant in the 1930s as Hitler was rising to power. Hitler believed in the same religion as Adam Weishaupt, and he required that all of his officers of the SS go through a secret initiation at a castle placed upon a hill where they would become adepts. Hitler spoke of communing with spirit guides. He said that he had seen the new man, and that he was increpid and cruel. And under this religion, of course, he would be with no moral or ethical guidance whatsoever. Hitler displayed upon his flag and upon the uniforms of his officers and men the swastika, which is the symbol of this ancient religion, has always been, and is the symbol of the object of the exoteric worship of the enlightened, the sun, the eternal flame, the representation of the source of light, illumination, the Illuminati. Isn't that amazing? Many people who grew up in Germany as Hitler was coming to power, and even after he had gained power over Germany and had begun his war on the European continent, have called me and informed me that they see the same things happening in America that happened in Germany during that time. And we hear people telling on television and on the radio about how if they had known, if they had watched the signs and had known what was coming, they could have stopped it. Yet the same thing is happening here today. Not only are they seeing it, but they are accepting it just as the Germans did then because it sounds good and it feels good to these ninnies who don't want to be responsible for anything. Hitler was a socialist, ladies and gentlemen. Nazi means literally National Socialist German Workers' Party. The battle for Germany in the 1930s was not left against right, ladies and gentlemen. It was socialism against communism. It was the Illuminists against Karl Marx. It's as simple as that. Never mind the fact that Illuminism always deteriorates into communism wherever they take charge. It is just a fact that you cannot descend into socialism without falling away ultimately into the communist experiment. Never mind the fact that it has never worked. But all of these things were the invention of the Illuminists to begin with in order to bring about their socialist world. Socialism is a form of entrapment, enslavement, if you will. Euphemistic though it may be, it is still enslavement. When you live in your Father's house and you accept His food, and you accept the shelter, the roof over your head, and you sleep in His bed, you must obey His rules. Have you forgotten that? Whether it is your human biological father, or whether it is Big Brother the state as your father, the rules are the same. Do you want to revert to a condition of childhood, or do you want to grow up and become an adult and be responsible? That's the difference, is responsibility, accepting the risks of the world in order that you might fulfill yourself and rise to the pinnacle of your ability with responsibility, paying for your mistakes, or whether you will accept the benevolence of Big Brother who will take care of you, never allowing you to rise to any pinnacle whatsoever, for one must never gain more than any other in a socialist system. Adam Weishaupt abandoned all the trapping of civilization, the destruction of religion, of family life, and parental discipline, of all existing governments, and he denounced ethics and morality as a violation of reason and national law. I should say natural law. The stress on natural law as the basis of true science and human organization clearly stamps the Illuminist followers of Weishaupt, including Clinton Roosevelt. And that includes Thomas Jefferson, ladies and gentlemen. Read the Declaration of Independence and you will see the words of Adam Weishaupt echoed in that document. The real purpose of the secret destiny of America was to give the common man a taste of freedom so as to topple the kings and queens, emperors, emirs, and sultans from their thrones, so that this brotherhood of man could sow the seeds of revolution and bring about their world government. It is no secret in Washington, D.C., I can assure you. And that is why the Washington Monument is an obelisk. And that is why when you walk into the rotunda of the Capitol building and look straight up at the Capitol dome, you will see a huge painting called the Apotheosis of George Washington. It literally means George Washington became God. It displays him in the chariot as Apollo, riding across the heavens in the chariot of the sun. And all around this great painting is depicted the old Roman pantheon of gods. And everywhere I hear this babble about how our founding fathers were all wonderful Christian individuals. If you study the layout of Washington, D.C. from the air, you will see that it has all the symbology of the ancient mystery religion of the Brotherhood everywhere. Weishaupt alleged that existent organized religions were not true religions. That is, Clinton Roosevelt repeats the function of true religion is, quote, to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and make on earth peace and goodwill to man, end quote. Nothing wrong with that. For if there is someone in your community who is needy, it should be the church and the community that takes care of their fallen member. But not forever, ladies and gentlemen, only enough to get them on their feet and then push them back out into the world to make their own way, for that creates good citizens. Taking people and making them dependent upon the community or upon the church makes another lazy lout who sucks from the breast of the community and thus diminishes the welfare of all. Don't believe it? Look at the Great Society that President Lyndon Baines Johnson created in this country, where he took people who were working, people who had jobs. Poor they may be, they had the same opportunity as everyone else in this country to rise above that. That was in a day when Americans were not ashamed to wash dishes or bus tables or pick strawberries in fields to earn their living and thus maintain their self-respect and dignity. And that was when those same people taught their children manners and morals and ethics. And they said, yes, sir, and no, sir, and no, ma'am, and please, and thank you, and excuse me. Even in the poorest, most miserable community, because they had self-worth. You will not find that in an inner-city welfare community, no matter the color or religion of the people who are on welfare. And it is wrong of you to display that as the characteristic of the black. Because there are more white people in this country on welfare than black people, and always have been, ladies and gentlemen, since the welfare system began. And that is the truth. Though you may not want to hear the truth, that's all you will ever get on this broadcast is the truth, the hard truth. All of this stuff is designed to divide us and thus put us at each other's throats in order to conquer us. And it works well. As I look around and I see this Hegelian dialectic in action, I can see that it works well. Very well, in fact. The function of providing social security, Weishaupt alleged, was not served by any religion and could be served only by his new religion, Illuminism. I bet you wondered where that term came from, social security. Wasn't that a con game? How many of you have caught on to the social security scam?
She who walks the seas, she whose years are uncounted, the Lilith Queen. As the moon changes its shape, Asherah remains unchanged. Her fury is the silence before the storm, her sorrow crashing waves and thunder, her beauty that the dawn breaking, and her loneliness constant and deep. Beware the daughter of the sea, for one day she will be free of dreams. Stranger in the night, walk on by.
Weishaupt organized his order along the lines of Jesuit organization. He was a Jesuit priest, and he drew heavily on abandoned sections of the canon, especially on the canon of usury, for his teachings, He was a ruthless politician. He was a master at the art of pretending to be all things to all men and using men's stupidity to destroy them. What makes someone want to join these organizations, these so-called fraternal lodges, where they're told from the beginning they will know nothing about what they're joining until they're initiated? How stupid can you be? Oh, yep, I'm going down to join Murderers Incorporated. Hey, Joe, why you want to do that? Well, it's a fraternal organization amongst these guys, and they just call it that. It's just a joke. Well, how do you know it's just a joke? Well, that's a fraternal organization. They exist for the good of the community. They wouldn't do anything bad. Well, why are you joining an organization, Joe, that you don't know anything about? Well, all of these guys, they take care of each other and look out for each other, and, they get all the contracts in town. Everybody knows that. I mean, my business is going to be a success if I join this lodge. So old Joe goes down and gets initiated, and after he's initiated, he thinks he knows everything. He doesn't even know what happened to him. He doesn't understand the symbology or the ritual that he was led through. All he knows is, I got the handshake now, boy. I'm on the gravy train. And generally that's true. These so-called fraternal organizations appeal to the basest nature of the human animal by promising them that they will become one of the elect few, the illumined ones, that they will learn great secrets, and that they will be taken care of by the brotherhood, and that their success in the community will be assured. That when they go into court, the court will look out after them. And that is generally true also. For the most part, most members of all of these different lodges don't know beans about what it is that they're a part of and never will and don't even want to. And there is no secret, for it is the lucky few who do catch on and do understand and do demonstrate their loyalty and obedience will rise up through the degrees to the highest levels, and they will ultimately find the secret that has been held out to them as the carrot since the beginning. And the secret is, ladies and gentlemen, that there is no secret. The secret is simply how to hold out the carrot of the promise of a secret to control and manipulate others. That is the only secret that they have. And all the while that they are taught that they will become God, that man is God. But I have yet to see one of these gods create a universe, or fail to grow old and die. I have yet to see any of them prove that reincarnation is real and that they're going to come back, or that anybody has ever come back from anywhere at any time, ever. It is a perversion of the mind. And these people are suckers. If they sit down and really look at what it is that they're doing, and listen to what it is that they are pattering, none of it makes any sense or has any reason connected to it whatsoever. Not at all. Adam Weishaupt cautiously avoided shocking the religious among the initiates into the order by pretending to support religion. He taught them that Christ was the first author of Illuminism, through which he sought to lead mankind back to the original liberty and equality that had been lost after the fall of Adam and Eve. And he exhorted his disciples to scorn riches in order to prepare the world for a community of goods that would do away with private property. But to members advanced into the secrets of the order, who were pledged to absolute discipline and to yield to our molding hands, he taught them this, and I quote his exact words: "The pretended religion of Christ was nothing else than the work of priests, a fraud and tyranny. Other religions have the same myths of their origin, are equally founded on lying, error, riddle, and fraud. In order to destroy Christianity and all religion, we pretend to have the only true religion. For the end justifies the means, and those we have taken to deliver you and the human race from all religions are nothing but pious frauds," end quote. Which was the admission that he himself, his organization, his religion, and his lodges are nothing but pious frauds. All of these peoples are liars. You watch them lie every day, and you wonder how they can do it. It's because they believe that the end justifies the means, and if they have to lie to get what they want, it's okay with them. You see, you don't understand. They have no morals, they have no ethics, and the end justifies the means. Whatever happens in life is just a learning experience. And how you behave in any experience is dictated by your subjective viewpoint, because you are God. The creation of the United States of America by the founding fathers, even though they may have had ulterior motives in doing so, was the culmination, the ultimate achievement of all humankind, where man ceased to be a slave and became a king and queen in his and her own right, with the ability to succeed, to rise to the pinnacle of whatever their talents or achievement may have been, and to be responsible for whatever they did in the process. It's called freedom, ladies and gentlemen. It is what all Americans have in common. It is the only thing that we need be concerned with in this country. Freedom with responsibility. And you don't get freedom by making more and more laws, by throwing more and more people in prison for doing nothing to anybody. You better watch out when the group becomes more important than the individual, because each and every one of you, though you may belong to the group, are individuals, and if you become unpopular, are politically incorrect, or if you utter one word that is disagreeable, you become forfeit and can be sacrificed by the group for the good of the whole. The only way, ladies and gentlemen, to protect the good of the whole was, as our forefathers saw it, was to protect the rights of the individual. That guaranteed the health of the whole. When you put the health of the whole over the health of the rights of the individual, you have destroyed everything. Weishaupt was a shrewd student of religion, ladies and gentlemen, and of canon law, which, as I said before, is religious law. He saw in the abandoned sections of the canon law on usury a diabolic device for robbing nations and enslaving them. I've been trying to teach you this for years. This section had been abandoned because it had been found by the church not only impractical, but actually dangerous, except possibly in church orders, where asceticism and devotion are the mainsprings and motives of existence. You see, the church was almost enslaved by the Knights Templars, who became the world's first international bankers. And so they learned their lesson the hard way. The rank and file of mankind engage in a struggle for existence and necessarily must be endowed with a strong sense of possession as an aid in the acquisition of material things essential for survival in the world at large. We all know that. Canon law decreed that there must be production for use and not for profit, and that making a profit in a business transaction is the sin and crime of usury. Usury was a cardinal sin and a capital offense under the canon. As a result of this canon on usury, the industry, commerce, and civilization of the Roman Empire disintegrated, and civilization and culture vanished in a flood of socialism. You see, only 3 vocations became open to mankind. You could join the orders of the church. You could earn by the sweat of the brow as a laborer, or the more cunning, ruthless, and violent individuals in the role of knight posed as protectors of labor or labor leaders, while actually enslaving the workers. And the more ruthless and violent the knight, the more serfs he enthralled, the more people he robbed, the wealthier and more powerful he became, all in the guise of protecting his victims and giving them security. That's socialism. Oh, you work my fields, you serve in my army, you wait on my tables, you lick my boots, and I will take care of you and make sure that you always have that work to do, and I will throw you the crumbs from my table. That's socialism. It's also feudalism. This became the age of darkness that is known as the medieval times. It does reflect some credit, ladies and gentlemen, on the church that it recognized in the communism of canon law and usury the root of the evils of medievalism, and that it abandoned that section, abandoned it, threw it out, understood what it had brought them. Professor Weishaupt knew the destructive force and the malevolence enslaving power inherent in the communist nature of the canon on usury, and he saw in it a weapon with which to impoverish and enslave mankind and gain dominion over the world, and he taught it to his followers. He embraced this dross of the church that he planned to destroy and made it the basis of his conspiracy. This he represented, ladies and gentlemen, as a new social order, new world order, new deal, new economic order, I don't care what you call it, great society. It's all the same. He also pretended that he could root out possessiveness from human nature and thereby perfect it. This is the fundamental fallacy of communism, even when it is sincerely tried, as has been revealed by numerous experiences during the 19th century. Experiments in communism were rampant. For the purpose of stealthily robbing peoples of their wealth when they refused to voluntarily renounce it, Weishaupt conceived of devices for confiscating all wealth by taxation. He advocated a progressive income tax and an even more confiscatory inheritance tax that would bar transmission of wealth and concentrate it in the hands of himself as ruler or in his organization. He knew that he was never going to see the culmination of this in his lifetime, ladies and gentlemen. Adam Weishaupt was no fool. He taught that it would take centuries to realize his goal. He urged the abolition of private property in any form, government ownership of industry, banking, and commerce, the complete regimentation and enslavement of labor, in a discipline that required absolute submission of will, body, and soul. And since as an educator he realized the value of education in gaining control of the minds of people, which means also control of their wealth and fortunes, and its value in gaining dominance by brainwashing, he required government control of education. And you all have seen what has happened in this country because of it. His plan is coming to fruition. We have idiots graduating from high school who can't read their diploma. And now we're going on to this pigeonholing of people into the outcome-based education. And schools that teach people where to work and how to work to do certain jobs. And that's going to be what they do all their life, with no hope of ever doing anything else. A clear concept of his conspiracy can be had if it is borne in mind that Weishaupt's government in reality meant himself as dictator. When I say himself, I'm talking about his organization, the Illuminati. Professor Weishaupt was versed in church lore. He knew well the effectiveness of espionage, torture, terrorism, and of savagery as devices for enforcing the subjugation and discipline of mankind or manipulating their thoughts. He established within his order for that purpose a Gestapo-type terrorist and murderous espionage agency, which he called the Insinuating Brothers. They were to ensure that there would be no leak in the secrets of the conspirators under threat of torture and vindictive persecution, and to aid in the subjection of the citizenry. It got its first extensive work out, ladies and gentlemen, the French Reign of Terror. Have you studied the French Revolution, which was brought about by the Illuminists, the Illuminati? Every totalitarian movement that has carried on the conspiracy since then adopted this device of Weishaupt's. The terrorist espionage corps is symbolized in the insignia of the Order of Illuminati by the all-seeing eye, mounted up on a pyramid that represents the secrets of the order. It is this insignia, strangely enough, that appears on the Great Seal of the United States of America, placed there by Weishaupt's agents in the American colonies. Didn't you wonder why there was a pyramid on the dollar bill? What do we care about pyramids, about Egyptology? Why do we have a pyramid on our dollar bill? Why is it capped with an all-seeing eye? Why does it have exactly 13 courses? What does all this represent? Most of you have never asked yourself that question. What does Novus Ordo Seclorum mean? Why, ladies and gentlemen, it means New World Order. That's what it means. Annuit Septus, Novus Ordo Seclorum, literally means, ladies and gentlemen, that they can see the culmination of their enterprise, that the great architect of the universe smiles upon their work. I could put it many other ways. Announcing the birth of the New World Order is one meaning. The Weishaupt-dictated Illuminist code enshrines lying, deceit, treachery, treason, brutality, violence, torture, and murder. Alfred P. Murrah Federal Buildings, World Trade Centers, Vicky Weavers, Branch Davidians as forces of strength. Vis-a-vis the stupid, dilettante folks who accept civilization, culture, ethics, morality, and religion as their code. He uses these things to bring these people who appreciate civilization, culture, ethics, morality, and religion as their code to their knees to beg for more control so that their freedom can be taken away from them in exchange for security against Alfred P. Murrah Federal Buildings in Oklahoma City, World Trade Center buildings in New York City, Waco massacres in Texas, and all of the other machinations of this vile organization that is destroying the United States of America and stripping your freedom from you as you stand there and watch, begging them to take more. It is amazing to me to watch all of this happening and try as I might to stop it and to wake you up, see that it just continues as you continue to sleep. It can't happen in America. This can't happen to me. This couldn't possibly be right. You're a conspiracy theorist. And you say it from a position of complete ignorance, never having done the research or a lick of study on the subject in your life. And you watch the agents of this conspiracy tell you what to say and echo on the boob tube in your living room, and like dutiful puppets, that's exactly what you do. How many of you, after the Waco massacre, echoed to your friends and neighbors, they were just a bunch of religious fanatics, they deserved what they got in America? Well, they must have done something wrong, or they wouldn't have done what they did. I wonder what you will say when it happens to you. And if you continue the way you are going, it is guaranteed to happen to you. Weishaupt taught that savagery would serve to intimidate, subjugate, and terrorize their adversaries, and thereby serve to speed the attainment of the conspirators' goal, which is the subjugation and enslavement of the more decent elements of mankind and the concentration of complete and total power in the hands of the Illuminati. Weishaupt taught that human life is worthless and meaningless except as a device to further his conspiracy. His followers have been instructed to lie without scruples, to deceive and betray without hesitancy, and they do it every day, and you watch them do it every day. Many of them you have voted into office. Others you work for or follow in some manner. Some are standing at the pulpits of your churches. They always have been enjoined to deny their adherence to the conspiracy, to deny its Illuminist, socialist, communist character when exposed, and to regularly attack and vilify their accusers and pose as injured parties whose civil rights were violated because we pinned them with the truth. You see, Weishaupt and his associates set the example for the conspirators by hiding their criminal activities behind aliases, a custom that still prevails among these people. The destruction of existing governments, all existing governments, Weishaupt planned to obtain through any device that would serve to weaken and destroy them. Internally within the nations, the recommended devices are spending the nation into bankruptcy and inflation. Class warfare, especially between labor and capital and between the races, revolution and civil war. The destruction wrought between nations by economic and physical warfare, however, was recommended by Weishaupt as most effective in leveling down all nations to a common denominator of misery that would make them all ready prey for a dictator and facilitate the attainment of the goal of the conspirators. One world, united in serfdom under one dictator. And you see the signs of this everywhere. They are preparing you for it. AT&T, one world, one card. Naturally, the attainment of this ultimate goal, ladies and gentlemen, required the elimination of patriotism and the fostering of so-called internationalism, and that's why patriotism has become a dirty word in America. That's why patriots and militias are attacked viciously, even though they have always been the first line of defense and the first to stand up and die in defense of freedom for the American people throughout the history of this country. And yet you parrot the words of your Illuminati masters and defame and defile and slander and libel your neighbors, who understand what is happening and are ready to stand once again in the front line of defense of freedom for those of you who are not even worthy of these people who would give such a noble sacrifice. And that is the truth. Why should they die for you when you are ready and willing to give it all up, and when you are ready to sell them down the river? Because you heard some slimy politician who has lied all of his life and continues to lie to you and is in the process of subjugating this nation to slavery through unconstitutional and treasonous legislation because you heard him say so. You are puppets. When they pull the strings, you dance to the tune that they play, and you parrot what they say because you are afraid that if you don't, you won't get your benefits. Socialism is for weaklings. Socialism is for parasites. Socialism is for those who would steal the sweat off the brow of those who legitimately earn what they have. How will they support this great world of socialism? They will exploit those who are able to produce and work. And they will take all of the production from these people and give to those who cannot or will not or won't. Because in doing so, they build their base of power. For those who are dependent upon Big Daddy will never allow Big Daddy to come falling down. They must support their source of sustenance. And that is where the power of socialism comes from. From the basest defects of the human animal comes the power of socialism. The desire in most people to not be responsible, to not work, to not produce, but to become once again children and to have the state become their daddy.
Lucifer, what is your problem?
Just that, sir.
Okay.
I'm a Christian, sir.
I'm pure and virtuous and wholesome and innocent. How can you say anything about me?
Sir, you need to be born again.
I am born again.
Now, did you just say that you were Lucifer?
I am Lucifer.
Okay, define Lucifer for me.
Pure, virtuous, wholesome, innocent individual that's out to help people.
Lucifer is?
Yeah.
Say that again. Lucifer is a pure, holy...
Virtuous.
Virtuous. Now, is he the Lucifer that God created?
That's the same one.
Oh, man, this is great. I'm going to put this on the internet.
Oh,
Amen.
God bless you,
Amen.
brother.
Because that's exactly what the Shriners and Masons teach, is that Lucifer is light.
No.
And you're
about those
confirming
hospitals?
You know what, sir? Jesus said, many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, we did not do these good deeds in your name? And you'll say, away from me, you workers of iniquity. I never knew you.
Jesus said it?
In Matthew chapter 5.
Mercy.
No.
That's hard to believe.
So you're a Christian and you don't know that. Actually,
no, I really am.
You are.
Because I'm pure and virtuous.
You're pure and virtuous, okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. In other words, you're perfect without Jesus, right?
No.
Okay, tell me about Jesus. Who is Jesus?
But he's my leader.
Is he the Son of God?
Yes, he is.
Is he the only worshipful master?
Yes.
Have you ever been called worshipful master?
No, because I've just been too busy. I've been working.
Working.
Been working to help people.
What
like
kind
you.
of work? Okay.
Get out of here.
See, this is what a Mason confesses, is that Lucifer is light.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the start, the Illuminist Socialist Communist conspiracy has been truly international. From time to time, its leadership has been shifted from one country to another. Agents of this conspiracy make it their careers. Weishaupt required that they worm their ways into government posts of confidence and policy-making capacities. And then, once there, when positions opened up below them, they would simply bring in other members of the order. By this method, it does not take too many years, ladies and gentlemen, to completely, and I mean completely, occupy an entire country. Once a government post has been attained, the conspirators are required to promote a steady infiltration of the government by their fellow conspirators. That is what has happened in the United States of America. As partners in crime, they are required to rise as a unit to the defense of their fellow conspirators, to protect them against all charges exposing their conspiratorial associations, to attack, defame, and smear all persons and organizations that undertake to expose the conspiracy, and to persecute and destroy them, and to further the conspiracy in every manner and by every crime that will serve its purpose. They are vile, despicable people. They are required to be traitors to the government that employs them, and to betray those governments into the hands of the current leaders of the conspiracy, in whatever land they are currently working on, or wherever they happen to be at the time. Conspirator agents, ladies and gentlemen, are shifted from one land to another in key capacity in order to ensure against possible reversion to national loyalty. A prime function of internationalism, from the viewpoint of the conspirators, is to instigate and agitate a constant chain of tension, antagonism, terrorism, and warfare between nations, betraying each and every one in turn until they are so weakened that they will fall ready prey to the conspirators who bore from within, like so many worms in a corpse. From the point of view of these conspirators, patriotism assumes the aspects of isolationism that frustrates their schemes. Treason against the rest of the world is, according to Weishaupt's perfectibilism, an essential and laudable trait, a virtue of which only his so-called liberals can be capable. Treason is no feature of what the conspirators call internationalism, and their anthem, Internationale, expresses the real nature of the conspiracy. And if you've never heard it, you must listen to the words. Other essential features of the conspiracy that were dictated by Adam Weishaupt that still characterize it today are the following. Listen carefully. A philanthropic pose that pretends to further the good of mankind and working their goodwill on humans. Another one is bipartisanship. Weishaupt demanded that the conspirators have no loyalty except to the conspiracy, that they never hesitate to pretend adherence to any and every cause in the interest of infiltrating them and taking them over for the furtherance of the conspiracy. They were required to dedicate lifetimes to the conspiracy. This gives it continuity during centuries. The assignment of these conspirators is perpetual and is in many instances hereditary, handed down from father to son and mother to daughter. During unfavorable periods for the conspiracy, its agents simply go underground, continuing their activities in posts given them by fellow conspirators that by preference are in the field of education, where they can continue this subversive propaganda among the rising generation. You see, the future belongs to the children. If they can brainwash or propagandize the children into accepting their ideas, the future is won, ladies and gentlemen. It is in their hands. The pearl of great price is within reach. When the political climate becomes more favorable for the conspirators, they emerge into the open in government posts, once again carrying on as they are today in the United States of America. You can identify them easily. It is strikingly illustrated in the activities of Weishaupt's followers in the United States. Adherents of Woodrow Wilson vanished from the public scene into cloistered halls and emerged in 1933 after years of hibernation as the exultant agents of the new Fair and Ike deals. The consequence of the perseverance of the conspirators is the fact, ladies and gentlemen, that with few exceptions, most of the members of Congress in all parties are their agents. And that's why it doesn't matter who you elect, nothing changes. We keep marching into our own destruction. Deceit, cunning, lies, manipulation of the conspirators who are enjoined from revealing their identification with the conspiracy and impressed with the necessity of denying their adherence. Venomous vindictiveness are visited by them, and all who betray are exposed them. The extent of the goodwill towards fellow men of the Illuminists is epitomized in Weishaupt's advice to them. He said this, listen carefully, quote, "Apply yourself to the art of counterfeiting, of masking yourself and spying on others, of picking their minds," end quote. And for the purpose of carrying out his conspiracy, Weishaupt organized his order of Illuminati as a rigidly regimented hierarchy in which each member was pledged to secrecy under threat of reprisal, persecution, torture, and death at the hands of the Gestapo, symbolized by the insignia of the order, and to absolute unquestioning obedience and abject submission and loyalty to superiors. You see, the members of the Order of Illuminati, like the members of their successor, the Communist Party, were intended to constitute the ruling class of a world dictatorship that would enslave all mankind. They were marshaled into several classes or degrees that in rising rank were classified roughly as follows. The first were novices or initiates, lesser Illuminati. Second, Freemason, ordinary Scottish and Scottish Knights. And third, the mystery classes, including 2 grades of priests, regents, potentates, grand potentates, magus, and king. Only the mystery classes were admitted to a knowledge of the criminal purposes of the Order of Illuminati at the highest degrees. At the lower degrees, you have a bunch of bumbling fools who really believe that they're doing good for the community, don't understand what they belong to, don't understand the symbology. They go through the rituals of the lodge every time they meet, and they don't even know what it represents or what they're doing, because they're really there for material gain. And for that, ladies and gentlemen, most people would do just about anything. But this prominent belief that most people are good at heart just isn't true, ladies and gentlemen. Some people are very good at heart, and without them there would be no society. But most people, the sheeple, ladies and gentlemen, are selfish, ignorant, apathetic, and would sell their soul for success in the marketplace or in their business or whatever it is that they value so much. They seek perpetual gratification like children and must have it now. The adherents of Adam Weishaupt's Illuminati order exploit this base nature of the human animal, and they exploit it well. Like the founding fathers of the United States of America, the adherents of the higher degrees of the order are geniuses when it comes to understanding human nature. Deceit and cunning of the conspirators prevail. The organization of the order that Weishaupt conceived and created for the purpose of carrying out his brutal, destructive conspiracy that was intended to rob, despoil, and enslave mankind and to restore medievalism, that was intended to seduce mankind, to overthrow its old misrulers for new ones, who were even more ruthless and cruel than the old, was closely patterned on the old order which he pretended to wish to destroy. It owed much to the discipline of the society of Jesuits in which Weishaupt had been trained and which he hated, or at least pretended that he hated, and to the order of Teutonic Knights, an extension of the ancient Knights Templar, the centuries-old group that had been granted by the Vatican the right to bring the faith to the Slavic heathen at the point of the sword. They subsequently interpreted this grant as a mission to rule the world. Their motto and objective was Deutschland über alles, a world dictatorship of German rulers. But this isn't German in nature, ladies and gentlemen. Believe me, the upper echelon of the order of Illuminati is made up of all different nationalities and people who outwardly profess certain religious beliefs, but in truth don't believe those religious teachings at all. They are loyal to only the order, and they believe only in the religion of the order, and they work only toward the furtherance of the agenda of the order, the completion of the great plan, the great work, the complete and utter and total subjugation of all of the peoples of the world to the rule of their benevolent dictatorship under a world socialist totalitarian government. Weishaupt dictated as the basic principle of his order the maxim, the end justifies the means. All concepts of civilization, of honesty, honor, decency, morality, ethics, and humanity he scorned and cast aside as the despised roots of the weakness that would betray mankind, their civilized adversaries, into the hands of the conspirators. Lying, deceit, manipulation, craftiness, cunning, shiftiness, dishonesty, brutality, ruthlessness, and murder he actually enshrined as virtues. In the true etymology and sense of the word source of power, Weishaupt dictated that these virtues were to be inculcated into the young, rising generations, ladies and gentlemen, through which all the devices of education, entertainment, and propaganda, he directed that wholesome parental discipline over them should be destroyed, so as to make the children ready prey of his ghoulish crew. You wondered what happened to your children? You wonder why each generation gets dumber and dumber and dumber? It's not by accident, I can assure you. It takes work to do that. It takes a plan. It takes parents who really don't care and hand their children over to the National Education Associates change agents in your local school so that they can be brainwashed and indoctrinated into the new socialism. From time immemorial, crafty men have connived and struggled for mastery of the minds of their more naive fellow men. For control of man's mind means control of his body, his wealth, his fortune, and his destiny. Such struggle, ladies and gentlemen, for ostensibly benign purposes is manifest in the history of religion. For malign purposes, it has always constituted an essential feature of every conspiracy against humanity and is used for the creation of intolerance and hatreds that serve the purposes of the conspirators. It is the Hegelian dialectic at work. The process of gaining control of minds en masse goes by various names: education, especially public education, propaganda, and in its most brutal form, brainwashing. Professor Weishaupt, as an educator, was fully aware of how much greater is the potency of control of man's mind than control of his body. He dictated a pattern of conversion of education and all media of mass communication to subversive propaganda. And this has become quite familiar to all of us through the activities of the agencies of our so-called philanthropic foundation trust. That includes the Carnegie and Rockefeller foundations, and of all the schools, colleges, and universities, newspapers, periodicals, the communist news networks, CNN, the Communist Broadcasting Service, CBS, the National Broadcasting Communists, NBC, and the Allied Broadcasting Communists, ABC, and then there's the Public Broadcasting Communists on PBC. All indoctrinating, all propagandizing, none of them telling you the truth. And then there's Hollywood, libraries. Have you noticed that certain books are disappearing from the libraries of the nation and from the Library of Congress? Clubs, societies, especially the secret and fraternal orders, and other agencies of mass communication dominated by the order of Illuminati. You don't have to take my word, folks. You don't have to take my word. In fact, I admonish you not to. Listen to everyone, read everything, believe absolutely nothing unless you can prove it in your own investigations. If you really believe what has happened to this country has happened by accident, then you're playing poker, folks, with no cards. Adam Weishaupt was also the reviver of the most forceful forms of brainwashing made familiar to the world by the cavalry, the Inquisition, the Gestapo, the OGPU, the NKVD, the Black Hand, in the form of his terroristic espionage organization known as the Insinuating Brothers, symbolized by the pyramid-mounted eye, known today as the Order of Illuminati. Weishaupt wrote, and I quote, "It is also necessary to gain the common people to our order. The great means to do that end is influence in the schools," end quote. He required of his followers that they yield themselves with perfect docility to our molding hands. It is interesting, ladies and gentlemen, to note that the entire Occasional Letter Number 1, issued in 1904 by John D. Rockefeller and Reverend Frederick Gates, his almoner, as a statement of the purposes of their philanthropy. The General Education Board is virtually paraphrased from the writings of Adam Weishaupt, both held to the premise, quote, "Man is the most contemptible of all animals, because it is the only animal that can be induced to destroy itself," end quote. He said this, he wrote it. That's what he thinks of you. They think you are stupid sheep animals, ripe for the plucking. And since you are going to fall prey to someone, why not to them? Weishaupt dared to go one step further than his followers. He openly expressed his contempt and openly reveled in the despicable stupidity of his brainwashed followers. And he wrote this, quote, "The most admirable thing of all is that the great Protestant and Reformed theologians who belong to our order see in it the true and genuine mind of the Christian religion. Oh, man, what can you not be led to believe?" End quote. Most people don't know that Martin Luther wore as a ring, which was his official seal, the rose and cross, which was another extension of Weishaupt's Order of the Illuminati. Weishaupt demanded blind and abject adherence to the order's party line as dictated by himself, and only himself, through all its deviousness, lies, contradictions, falseness, and deceit, complete acceptance of mental warping and brainwashing, and unquestioning physical submission. Any follower who questioned or resisted his dictates, or who failed in abject submission, was purged, or disappeared, or was found murdered somewhere. He had no scruples about saying that he sought to lure dupes into his order, and he wrote, quote, "These people swell our numbers and fill our treasury, get busy and make these folks nibble at our bait. But do not tell them our secrets. They are not to be admitted to the secret degrees and knowledge of the conspiracy to enslave them the true purpose of the order. They must be made to believe that the low degree that they have reached is the highest, end quote. And that is what many master masons of the Blue Lodge sincerely believe. They have been duped. And no wonder. Anyone who would join an organization which they know nothing about, and are told in the beginning they can know nothing about, until they've gone through the initiation process and up the ladder of the several degrees, is a fool to begin with. And then they sit there thinking that they know it all, parroting that there is no conspiracy. How would they know? How would they know when they're on the very bottom rung of the ladder, believing that they are at the top? Amazing, isn't it? How you can destroy men with a little mysticism and the promise of a secret that they never, ever obtain, except for a very few who are nurtured and watched and tested for loyalty and belief, who are helped up the ladder by their mentors until they get to the top and find out that, lo and behold, there is no secret except the secret of how to hold out the carrot of a secret to entice and control others. It would be difficult, ladies and gentlemen, to express more concisely the objectives of Weishaupt's conspiracy in the field of educational propaganda than was done in the occasional letter number 1 of Rockefeller's General Education Board. It reads as follows, and I quote, "In our dreams we have limitless resources, and the people yield themselves with perfect docility to our molding hands. The present educational conventions fade from our minds, and unhampered by tradition, we work our own goodwill upon a grateful and responsive rural folk. We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or of science. We have not to raise up from among them authors, editors, poets, or men of letters. We shall not search for embryo great artists, painters, musicians, nor lawyers, doctors, preachers, politicians, statesmen, of whom we have an ample supply. The task we set before ourselves is very simple as well as a very beautiful one, to train these people as we find them to a perfectly ideal life just where they are. So we will organize our children and teach them to do in a perfect way the things their fathers and mothers are doing in an imperfect way in the homes, in the shops, and on the farm." End quote. All of the vital elements of Weishaupt's conspiracy were found in this letter. First, there is the pose of philanthropy. Second, the intent to brainwash or mold. Third, the abandonment of tradition, science, and learning. Fourth, the dictatorship objective. Fifth, the intent to regiment the peasantry into a caste system just where they are. Sixth, the intent to reduce national intelligence to the lowest common denominator and to destroy parental influence, which has been so successful that it has given the country a terrifying wave of juvenile delinquency. Seventh, contempt of the people, who were also called our children by the tyrannic Tsar, the little white father. Seventh, the element of deceit that entered the situation when the too frank avowal of the true purposes of the foundation became recognized shortly after it was founded, and the Rockefellers belied their intent to reduce intelligence to the lowest denominator, and posed as patrons of art, letters, and science. Eighth, the element of subversion and un-Americanism. The avowed intent to overthrow accepted customs and institutions to serve the purposes of the Rockefeller Illuminati sponsors and to further their plots and schemes. And finally, perfectibilism, the perfecting of human nature, Weishaupt's dream and sham. The great confidence game is worked upon us all the while, thinking that we are brilliant and smart, and it can't happen to us, and it can't happen here. This happens in other places. It happens in Germany. This happens in Europe. This happens in South America. This happens in South Africa. It can't happen here. Isn't that what you say? don't deny it. I hear you say it every day. Like his followers and their public relation henchmen, Professor Weish was a master propagandist. He took special pains to lure into the Order of Illuminati the top names of the era among the philosophers, authors, newsmen, and all who had at their disposal the media of mass communication. And the Order, in turn, undertook to enhance the effectiveness of the propaganda of its members by boosting and promoting them in a spirit of mutual admiration. How do you think Rush Limbaugh came from an obscure radio station in Sacramento to be broadcasting on over 600 radio stations across the nation? And he sits there on half of his brain, spinning you around in circles, telling you that he is a conservative and promoting things like NAFTA and GATT, which pull down our borders, destroy our sovereignty, take jobs away from the American people, and you call him up and say, "Ditto from Missouri, Rush. Boy, you've sure awakened me." How has he awakened you? He's kept you from the truth. He doesn't talk about the real enemies of the Republic. He doesn't give you any real solutions. He spins you around and round like a top on the table until you fall off the edge and shatter into a million pieces. That is what's happening to America. And you sit there and you listen and you believe it. They pull the strings and you dance. They pipe the tune and you sing the words that they wrote to your children, who then become dutiful little puppets after you. The Order enhances the effectiveness of the propaganda of its members by boosting them and promoting them. Why do you think George Bush invited Rush Limbaugh to sleep in the White House and to sit by Barbara Bush during the Republican National Convention? So that you would believe that he was important and that he was telling you the truth. They lifted him from obscurity and they presented him to you as the conservative Messiah. Now, folks, this isn't about Rush Limbaugh, really. I'm using him as an example. I could use anybody in the media. Anybody that rises to that level must espouse the Illuminist point of view, or they are not allowed to rise at all. You see, in order to neutralize the conservative forces in this country, or those who believe that they're conservative, it's really a label that means nothing. You're either an American or you're not, and that's the truth of the matter. But they had to give these people some kind of a belief that they had a spokesperson in the media, so as to neutralize them, so that they could not get behind someone who would truly be their spokesperson and lift them up to represent them. Truthfully, it is the way the conspiracy works. It is the way it has always worked. Promote them in a spirit of mutual admiration. The ranks of the Order of Illuminati were filled with literati, the intelligentsia, who realized the material advantages of its support, not understanding through a study of history, which even historians don't seem to really believe, that as soon as the Illuminati rise to power and install their socialist linchpins in the highest levels of government, the first people that they eliminate are the intelligentsia, the literati who brought them to power. It's written in the misery of all of the countries that have allowed socialism to take them over. And all you have to do is look at the history of those countries to see what is going to be the history of this country if we allow it to continue. I am continually amazed at all of this. In the ranks of the Illuminati are to be found encyclopedists, Voltaire and Rousseau, who played so large a role in the preliminary propaganda that prepared the way for the French Revolution that was engineered by the Order. In Germany, its ranks were joined by Goethe, Engel, and Karl Marx. Marx's Communist Manifesto that publicized the administrative aspects of the Illuminist socialist communist conspiracy was directly plagiarized from Weishaupt's teachings and writings. Marx himself was an abject failure at everything he did, a miserable man, a racist. If you look at any socialist organization, that's usually what you'll find. Rejects, failures, losers. And that's why they adopt socialism. It promises them that Big Brother will take care of them. They don't have to succeed. They don't have to become anybody. They don't have to exert themselves. They don't even have to work. Is it any wonder that they find it easy to swell their ranks whenever they need to do it? In America, DeWitt Clinton, Thomas Paine, Thomas Jefferson, Clinton Roosevelt, Benjamin Franklin were among the Illuminist adherents. Ben Franklin was the master of the Lodge of Nine Muses in France. In America, he pretended to be an abject Christian, moral and ethical man. There's no doubt that he was a genius. When he was in France, he surrounded himself with prostitutes and bottles of champagne and drank himself into oblivion. It's a matter of historical record. The Illuminati overlooks no source of support and revenue for its philanthropic order, thus setting an example that the successors have invariably followed. Weishaupt undertook to be all things to all men and women, just like American politicians. They'll go down the street to the meeting of the union and promise the union members everything that they want. They'll go down the street a little further later that same night to a meeting of industrialists and managers and promise them that they will get whatever they want and that he will suppress the unions. The union believes what Bill Clinton says, and the managers believe what Bill Clinton says, and it doesn't mean anything using the name Bill Clinton. It could be Newt Gingrich or Bob Dole or any of them. They are all the same. Traitors working treason upon us. I don't care what name you pin upon their shirt. They are all engaged in the same treason. Now you know why William Clinton named me in a White House memo as the most dangerous radio host in America. Not because I carry an assault rifle or an assault hammer, but because I carry and wield the truth unmercifully. That is why I'm the most dangerous radio host in America. That is why Bill Clinton is afraid of me. That is why all of the politicians in Washington, D.C. are afraid of me. They are scared to death that you will listen, and that you will investigate, and that you will seek out the truth and expose it to the light of day and return this nation to freedom, to the guaranteed constitutional republic that gave birth to the freest people in the greatest nation that has ever existed upon the face of this earth, that they are in the process of destroying, to bring about their utopian socialist world government. You can be free, or you can be a slave. It's up to you. It is up to the American people, for we are the last bastion, the last line of defense in the world against this creeping malignancy. If we allow ourselves to be disarmed and plunge into socialism, then the human race will go backwards in its evolution into enslavement from which it escaped when our founding fathers created the United States of America. The ultimate achievement of all humankind, by the way. And until this nation was created, no people had ever existed upon the face of this earth free at any time in the history of the world. They had all been owned, controlled, manipulated, enslaved by sultans, emperors, emirs, kings and queens, lords. You really want to go backwards? Is that really what you want? Is that the destiny of the human race? Good night, folks. God bless each and every single one of you. Good night, Pooh, my darling sweetheart. Good night, Allison, you vibrant little bundle of joy. You know, this house is haunted. I can hear you girls screaming and playing all the time. Annie, you're the love of my life. You always will be the love of my life. And I miss you. I miss you all terribly, terribly much.